Oops, didn't mean to do that. Hello, everybody. How are we? Good evening. Um, you have somehow stumbled upon a corner of the internet where this random dude is doing a live stream. Um, so, those of you that have no idea who I am, or are just finding this, or you might have just stumbled across this, who am I? What do I do? I'm a rock singer. I write songs. I'm a theatre producer. I don't do every type of gig imaginable over the last 20 years, 15 years. I'm not that old. Um, and if you got any questions to ask me about what it's like to be on stage or anything about vocal technique or what it takes to be a theatre producer or what it is to make money being a musician in 2026, anything about practicing, anything about playing an instrument, how to book a theatre tour, what shampoo I use. Feel free to ask any questions you like, and I'll try and get back to you. And I hope you find this. I hope you enjoy it. First question, Justin. Good evening, Justin. Hi, Jesse. Are there more dates being announced for the Classic Rock Show tour? No Eastbourne this year. Justin, the truth is, mate, I don't have anything to do with the booking of the Classic Rock Show tour. So, for those of you that do know and don't know, the Classic Rock Show is a huge scale touring production here in the UK. We do all sorts of amazing rock and roll songs from some of the greatest artists of all time. We're very lucky. We tour in an 8-piece band with a big crew. But the way it works, Justin, is that the show is owned by a company, a parent company. They book the theatres, they promote the show, and they hire us. We are very much a band. We've been together for a long time. However, we genuinely have no say on where we go, which theatres we do, which theatres are available, etc., etc., etc. So I have no idea if some, for example. We always play in Cambridge, right? This year there's a big renovation going on, so we're not playing Cambridge because there's renovation. So it could be something as simple as the renovating the theatre, or it could be availability. It could be the fact that the venue has another rock show in the same week that we were trying to book the theatre. I don't know. So anyway, all I can say is I'm sorry we're not playing Eastbourne. We genuinely just love playing shows, man. So it's not down to us. So I don't believe there's any more Classic Rock Show dates being announced for this coming year. But maybe use it as an excuse to discover some other fantastic town in the UK. You take a day trip somewhere. So, good evening. Who have we got here? Sandy. Sandy says, "Hi Jesse, will you be with the London Symphonic Rock Orchestra?" It just depends when, Sandy, because I've been very lucky with the LSRO. They're a bunch of amazing people, so in the London Symphonic Rock Orchestra, we do obviously big orchestral arrangements of rock songs with traditionally classical instruments. And I essentially share the lead vocal duties these days with my friend Raz, who's an amazing rock singer as well. And we kind of balance our diaries out depending on what we've got going on elsewhere and whether we can make it work. So if you can ask me specifically, Sandy, if you want to check with me, and I can tell you whether I'm likely to be there or not. But either way, it's a fantastic show, and either me or Raz will be there. Please get your questions in the comments, guys. This is going to be just a chat with you all. Some of you are part of my Patreon page. Thank you so much for coming back and watching, everybody. My Patreon is kind of my VIP section, my inner circle of folks that have been supporting me all the way since back in COVID, and we've just finished our monthly cuppa catch up where we kind of talk very frankly about what it's like to be a musician and all that sort of stuff. So good evening, Helen. Helen Bentley 333 says, what has been the highlight of your career so far, not including Strictly Come Dancing, of course? Yeah, so I used to sing with Strictly Come Dancing. Strictly was actually a very stressful gig. Everybody on that show is incredible, so amazingly talented. Everyone from the props team to the sound department to the lighting to the stage crew to the dancers themselves, and of course the amazing band that have to play all these songs. And yeah, I would say for sure that was the most stressful thing I've ever had to do, because you have to go from singing something you might be comfortable with, like a rock song for me, to singing musical theatre, to Motown, to Scooby-Doo, to even one terrible, terrible rendition of a Celine Dion song that I did once. But the immediate thing that springs to mind, Helen, for me is I absolutely adore performing live, right? I think that's what I'm best at. It's what I've done the most in my career. It's what I'm most known for. And I've been so lucky with some of the places I've got to play in my career so far. The one that really sort of is a special memory in my heart is that I do a show called Led Zeppelin Symphonic, and it's an orchestral show performing the music of Led Zeppelin. I love Led Zeppelin. It's just a dream to get to perform that music. However, we did our first show with that show that was postponed because of the pandemic. So it was the first gig back after the pandemic, first time I've been on a plane, and we flew to Athens. And those of you that have been to Athens will know it's the most incredible city. Obviously, all this ancient history there, and there's a huge kind of mountain hill called the Acropolis, and on the side of the Acropolis there is a 2,000-plus-year-old amphitheatre called the Odeon of Herodes, or the Herodio. And that was the first gig we did with Led Zeppelin Symphonic. And it looks out over the whole of Athens. And I'm getting like teary just thinking about it, because it was at a stage in my career where everything was so uncertain. We didn't know whether we were going to be able to tour again at that point for years, you know, and how the pandemic would affect our industry. And that was the first gig back that I did. And we came out to an overture, and just to see the faces of the Greek fans that come to hear that Led Zeppelin music in that environment with the dry ice, and it was just a spine-tingling moment. So that definitely is a highlight that I remember so well. But I mean, I've had some amazing ones so far. You know, performing at Wembley was a pretty cool one. Wembley Arena, that was a pretty special one. And yeah, I did also remember a festival I did in India that was just so lovely. So yeah, I mean, that's the best bit about being a musician, right? Is getting to perform on these big stages and hold on to these amazing memories forever. So thank you for asking, Helen. I think that's probably those type of shows spring to mind. Karen says, how many jackets have you got for on stage? You do seem to have a lot of changes. Do you know what, Karen? I think it's important, actually. You know, you have to kind of keep... I do, anyway. I like keeping it fresh, because I feel like you guys are coming to see the show year after year, and... you know, it would be boring if I wear the same thing every time, you know? So I like to mix it up. I like fashion. There's a few brands that I love. If you're watching, Fix and Other and brands like that, if you want to offer me a sponsorship deal, my email is readily available on my website. And I love kind of wearing rock and roll clothes and glittery jackets and sparkly stuff, you know, and leather, and that's what rock and roll should be. It's a show, you know. So if I was going to guess, I'd say I've probably got, I don't know, 30 or 40 rock jackets currently, but some of them I get rid of and then I get new ones. And I always set aside a budget before any tour I go on, and on the last few years of the Classic Rock Show, I've been working with a brilliant stylist as well, a friend of mine called Charlie, who's been helping me out pick out outfits for the stage. And I always really enjoy changing up my outfits each year. Jacqueline says Raz has a fantastic voice. Seen him in the History of Rock show twice now. Yeah, he really does. He's a dude. Mark, good evening, Mark. He says, would you consider touring a show covering other classic music years, bearing in mind the reception for 1971? Yeah, I mean, obviously for me, 1971 is my theatre touring production that I absolutely love doing, and I think there's something really special about that year, and it especially where it sits for me in terms of my music taste. So it's songbook meets rock. You know, you've got all the stuff like Carole King, Joni Mitchell, the Beatles solo stuff. So like John Lennon, Imagine, All Things Must Pass, technically 1970, but some amazing records. And then you've got stuff like Faces, Stay With Me, Carpenters, Superstar, Rainy Days and Mondays, American Pie. You know, so it's sort of a perfect blend for me of like songwriter meets rock show. But honestly, you know, it's a hell of a lot of work getting a theatre production off the ground. But my dream for sure would be to tour 1971 for the next few years and get it to a point where it's doing really well, and then pivot and do other years. Absolutely. I mean, you could do a 1977, you could do a 1992, you know, you could do all the Nirvana and all the grunge stuff, and you know, I mean, the list goes on, doesn't it? There's some amazing years in rock history for sure, but 71's what we're concentrating on for now, Mark. Justin says, is there one particular song you'd love to do on tour which you've not done yet? P.S. I'm the chap who suggested Deep Purple's Child in Time with you last time in Eastbourne. Yeah, Justin. So, I mean, that's a really good suggestion. So what tends to happen is when we're choosing a set list for not just 1971 or the Classic Rock show, it's sort of any show, is that every song you choose has a knock-on effect. So, for example, if we do Child in Time, it's a very long song, right? It's probably 8 to 9 minutes long. And on a show like the Classic Rock show, for example, there's three of us who sing, right? So there's three singers plus Wayne actually sings. So if we're going to do a few songs each, and that one is 9 minutes long, and it's also a ballad, that means that you can't really have another ballad within 4 or 5 songs of that one. You've got to keep the tempo of the setup, and the flow of the gig alters massively depending on which songs you add in. So if, for example, I really want to do something like Since I've Been Loving You, Led Zeppelin, one of my favourite Led Zepp songs, or Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, for example, right? But they're both pretty long and pretty slow. So that limits like the amount of ballads that the rest of the guys can sing, for example. So it's just one big jigsaw puzzle every year, and it's not even necessarily about the songs we want to do. It's just like, well, if we're doing this one because we really want to do this one, then it means we can't do this one. You know what I mean? So it's more about the pacing, trying to fit in as many songs by as many different artists as we can, and then and trying to pick things that really turn us on musically as well, you know? So yeah, probably those 2 songs by Led Zeppelin would be the ones I would really love to do. But I love all of it, man. I love all of it. Craig says, hi, Jesse. Keep up the good work. My question is, have you got any venues left to play that you really want to? Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, I've been very lucky to have toured America, and we got to play some amazing venues out there, but ones that spring to mind, I mean, massive places like, Madison Square Garden, the Hollywood Bowl, Red Rocks. You know, they're bucket list venues for me, for sure. In terms of this country, I've got a bucket list gig coming up, which I'm really excited about. I'm doing War of the Worlds, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds in October this year, and I'm playing the Hammersmith Apollo, which is one of my favourite venues ever. Can't wait to play that one. And then in terms of the UK, I mean, I've actually sung at the Royal Albert Hall when I was younger, but I was a kid. I think I was 18, maybe 17 or something. So I'd love to do a gig there as well. Yeah. And then, of course, there's some amazing places all over the world, isn't there? And again, I've been really lucky to perform all over the place. But I love festivals as well. So Glastonbury would be a good one. That would be a really, really bucket list one for me as well. Mike says, hey Jesse, hope you're well. Was surprised and disappointed that you aren't part of the prog rock prom at the Albert Hall. Who knows, mate? Maybe they'll do it again. I saw that actually. That looked really cool. Oh, Sue's just asked me that. Have you ever played at the Royal Albert Hall? Well, yes and no. I've sung there twice, but I think once I was 11, and the second time I think I was probably about 17. So yes. Andrew says, did you sing on Rick Wakeman's Return to the Red Planet? No, I actually didn't. So my very good friend, the fantastic, very talented Molly Marriott, did the vocals on that. That was... it was recorded before I was involved in the band, I believe, and I'm sure she's done an absolutely amazing job on it. So yeah, go check it out. Peyton says, hey Peyton, good evening. Says, hey Jesse, any updates on your next album? So yeah, I've been working on it. My friend Sarah, who I've been writing it with, is I was in contact with her today, and we're basically, I'd say we're like 2/3 of the way through writing it. It's been a long process. I've been really busy with touring and stuff. This is a really interesting topic, actually. It's like, it's so lovely and amazing that I have this wonderful touring career and all these different projects, but it does mean that sometimes your creative projects fall to the bottom of the pile, which is such a shame, because it's the thing I love doing most in the world. Obviously performing and singing my own songs and writing and all that sort of stuff. But then if I get offered a tour and I have to go away for a couple of weeks or a few months or whatever, it always seems to be the creative stuff that gets put to the bottom of the pile, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm working on it, and hopefully it'll be not another million years before it's out, Peyton, but thank you for asking. Hi, AJ. AJ says, what is your favourite rock ballad you like singing most of all? Well, I had to put together a show recently, and I could choose anything I wanted to, and it was a 45-minute set, and the songs I chose in the set were Love, Rain on Me by The Who, which is one of my favourite songs by The Who. It's so dramatic. It's from Quadrophenia. I love the movie, and I love the record. It's everything I love about rock. It's kind of dramatic and over the top and emotional, and it has sweetness and dirtiness, and I just love performing that one. So that's probably up there for me. I love singing Dream On again because it's really dramatic. I also love, for example, I don't know if you can hear my keyboard, but once there was a way to get back homeward, stuff like that by the Beatles. You know, I absolutely love singing those old Beatles songs. And then I love the singer-songwriter stuff as well, you know, stuff like in my 1971 show, I get to do stuff like Vincent by Don McLean. I mean, what a beautiful song. So, yeah. Colin says that he loved Hammersmith Apollo and he met Eddie Vedder there. So cool. I was actually at that gig, Colin. I went to see Eddie Vedder at the Hammersmith Apollo when he did his solo show. I don't know when that would have been. Was it 5 years ago? Everything seems like 5 years ago, and then you remember there was a pandemic, so it was probably like 8 years ago. Can anyone tell me when Eddie Vedder played at Hammersmith Apollo, or shall I Google it? Eddie Vedder, Hammersmith Apollo. 2017. So it was 9 years ago. Goodness me. Glenn Hazard was there, wasn't he? And I think, did Danny Harrison come out and play from memory? Anyway, wow, I can't believe that was 9 years ago. So yeah, that was really awesome. Colin says he handed you a few plectrums. Very lovely. Well done, mate. Right, any more questions, everybody? Get them in. Otherwise, it's just me rambling on about my life. What I'm really interested in is if anybody's got questions that maybe you're a musician and you want to know how to make something, or you want to, I don't know, you want to know how something works, or how anything technical or anything about singing, or that's what I'm here for. I want to try and be of service to you guys as well. Susan says, can't wait to see you in December and again in January. Classic Rock Show front row, amazing. Well, I will definitely see you then if you're in the front row, because if I don't have my contact lenses in, I can't see much further than the front row anyway. Hi, Romy. How are you? So Romy says, I saw you in Padua in November with the London Symphonic Rock Orchestra, but my greatest desire is to be able to see you with the Classic Rock Show, and I look forward to coming to Italy sooner or later. Big hugs, Romy from Italy. Oh, thank you so much. I loved doing that tour in Italy. I mean, what's not to like? The food and the people, and I had the best time. So I really hope we get to come back to Italy soon. I would love that. Craig says, how did you get the idea to unplug Kashmir? It was stunning. Thank you very much. Yeah, so there's a cover of me doing Kashmir on YouTube. I shot it with my friend Luca. It was fun. I think those of you that have been following me for a while will know that during the pandemic, I started doing online streaming, and I did it pretty regularly, like every Friday for the best part of 2 years, I think, really. I think I did 50 or 60 hours of streaming one year, and it was just me, right? So I'd come out and I'd have a bottle of wine and I would sit and play songs, and people would request things, and I had a PayPal link for people to donate to me, and it was such a lovely time, actually, for so many reasons. Obviously, it was scary as a musician to suddenly have all your work taken away, but it was a lovely time because what happened was we built this amazing community of people and everyone would come and watch. And during those, it was just me. So I had my guitar and I had a keyboard, and people would request all their favourite songs, obviously, So if someone said, can you do Kashmir? It was like, I think so, and then I ended up playing a lot of stuff, and I guess some of it was great, some of it was a bit dodgy, but it was just all during the pandemic, and I think people enjoyed seeing that raw, sort of living room gig experience, So I learned a lot of songs on an acoustic guitar. Also, when I was sort of learning to play and I was coming up when I was younger, I did a lot of pub gigs and stuff, So I used to learn how to, I used to learn loads of songs. I know hundreds and hundreds of songs on guitar. So just the type of musician I am, I can sort of blag my way through stuff, but even though I'm not the best guitarist for sure, Yes, I hope that answers the question. Amaloon 3723 says, what's your favourite song to soundcheck with? Do you know what my favourite song to soundcheck with? We've done this in 1971. We've also done it with the Rick Wakeman Band. Is a song by Yes called Roundabout. If you don't know it, check it out. 1971. It's an amazing song. We played that in soundcheck a few times. That's definitely one of my favourite songs to soundcheck with. Also, we once did a gig in, I think it was Jacksonville, Florida, and I think this is right. It's called the Florida Theatre, and we looked online, and Elvis Presley had done 6 shows in 3 days. There's 3 matinees and 3 evening shows at this theatre, and so I was stood with my guitar in the exact spot where Elvis had done those shows, and it was right in the early days when. He basically been warned by the police in Florida, and they were stood in a line at the front of the stage that if he shook his hips, he would be arrested. And so it was really in the early days when they would just film him from the waist up, And so we obviously consequently played loads of Elvis songs, So the whole sound check was, we're caught in a trap, and Blue Suede Shoes and, all that stuff. So that was really fun to sound check with as well. So, yeah. There would be my soundcheck ones. Andrew says, how do you get your head around alternative guitar tuners, Jesse? Is it just a matter of muscle memory, or can you switch your brain to function it differently? A lot of the shapes are kind of similar, Andrew. So I think, for example, this is like this because the strings vibrate when I record, so I have to wrap the strings up. This might not be in tune, but so this is an open G, I think. which is like a Rolling Stones kind of tuning. So you know, that really kind of cool tuning, and it's actually basically similar shapes to what you would play on a normal guitar. It just sounds different. So if I play that on a standard tuning guitar, it sounds, you're in different key and stuff, but it's, so that same shape is like a -7, I guess. So it's like, so that same thing sounds. So obviously it doesn't sound as good, but a lot of the shapes are kind of similar in terms of the chords, even though you might not necessarily play that same thing on a standard tuning, if you know what I mean. So essentially a lot of them are transferable. And actually, funnily enough, when you tune to open tunings, quite often when I'm writing and stuff, the open strings are the ones that are so nice because that in itself, when it's open, is a chord. So whatever, you know what I mean. I'm just messing around. But you can play a lot more open tunes, and actually, I think you'll find a lot of the songs that are in open tuning tend to be a bit simpler. I find. Open tunings and different tunings are great for somebody like me who writes a lot of songs and is not the most proficient guitar player in the world. You know, like I'm okay, but compared to like a proper guitar player, I'm rubbish. So it means that I can create different sounding things and more interesting sounding things in open tunings because they're a bit more rare, basically. So a lot of the songs on my album are in different interesting tunings. Mike Skinner says, talking technical, it always amazes me how the lockdown online performances were put together, like Black Hole Sun and More Than a Feeling. How are they put together? Yeah, so that was a really interesting time, wasn't it? Because everyone had loads of time and everyone was at home. So essentially, you'd usually start off with some kind of demo. So either it would be me playing to a guitar and singing or something like that, or it would start with a drummer, for example, and they would play to a metronome, like a click track, and then so they'd have that in their ears, they'd play their part, record it, film it, and then they'd send that to the next person, who might be the bass player, and then the bass player would listen to the drums and the click, play along with it, record his bass part and his video, and then send it to the next person, and that's basically how it happened, and that's how we were able to create a lot of those things in lockdown, and it was just a lot of time and effort, and then somebody was obviously edit it all together, mix it, edit it down, and mix it all together after the fact. Sarah is reminiscing about those lockdown times. Yeah, they were really lovely. They were really fun. Joe says, I did just see that Bless the Telephone and It Must Be Love by Labi Siffre, both from 1971. It was a really good year. Obviously, we're more familiar with the Madness version of It Must Be Love. I didn't even know that wasn't a Madness song, Joe, so that's amazing, and I'm learning every day. I did know Bless the Telephone was 1971. I love that song as well. I love that Labi Siffre song. It's so beautiful. My friend Rich actually sent it to me about 6 months ago, and I was like, wow, I love this song so much. Tara says, was great and funny at times. Would you do it again? Yeah, for me, it's just about time, Tara, to be honest. Obviously, I love doing those live streams, but yeah, it just depends. It's just more about scheduling these days. You know, I have less time right now, obviously, than I did during the lockdown. But who knows? I mean, I want to do more of this. I keep saying it, which is why I just decided to do it tonight, because I really want to keep connecting with you guys and answer your questions and hopefully build this community a little more, you know? Colin says, I know you must take care of your voice, but having such a long tour must take its toll. You give it 110% every show. Yeah, I think that comes with experience, Colin, you know, and you as you get more adept at touring, you learn you learn lots of things. You learn how to look after yourself, and everybody's different. Everybody kind of warms up in a different way, and everybody looks after the voice in a different way. Everybody needs good sleep, good rest. You've got to watch what you eat in terms of vocal health. And again, different people are different. I just do what works for me, and it's just trial and error. And then sometimes you can be really on it and try and be as healthy as possible, and then you just get ill, And then sometimes you can sing through the illness, and sometimes you can't. And that's just it. And it's part of having your instrument as part of your body, and that's just it. We can look after it as much as you want. And I'm obviously a trained singer. I've got a lot of pretty good technique, which is a lot of it as well. So it's more about preventative measures, and that comes from having a great vocal coach and everything else. But yeah, even what I'd say is, as a singer, we always give 100% in terms of performance, or we try to. We try to deliver a great high energy show, but actually sometimes vocally, it's actually about singing in a kind of slightly more, what's the word? Just like actually taking 5% effort off, because the difference is you're never going to notice as an audience member. And actually, often when you sing at 90% rather than 100, it sounds nicer anyway, So anyway, Gary says, how do you remember all of the different songs you get to play and sing? This is a funny question because I genuinely don't know. I've been doing it so long, and I think, to be honest, Gary, it's just the way my brain works, because my short-term memory is pretty rubbish. Like, I'm not very good with names. I'm not particularly good with faces either. I try my best, obviously, but there's songs I've heard like once or twice, and I could play you them now, without having ever learnt them. They just go in, and I just know them, I've always sort of been like that, really, since I was a kid. And I think as you get older as well, I think learning songs can get more difficult. And there's definitely times where some songs are harder to learn than others, and it might just be the way that you learn. And I'm learning all the time. I actually showed the guys on my Patreon this earlier. So I'm learning right now. I'm learning War of the Worlds, and you can do things like this. So I've written out the script in my own handwriting, and then I've basically put the first letter of each word in the margin. So this is more for line learning rather than songs, but it works with songs too. So the first line is anyone here, and I've just written AH. So it's like one step further than just reading the line, because when you're just reading, you're not using your memory really. So AH makes you go, okay, AH, what does that mean? Oh, okay, I remember anyone here. And then eventually you don't need the paper anymore. So little things like that you can use to sort of help you. But for me in general, over the years, it's more about listening over and over and over again, and repetition, and just practicing so much that you just can't get it wrong anymore. So it's just in your body. So it just becomes second nature, Deborah says, live streams are so good, something to look forward to every week. Oh, thank you so much, Deborah. I'm so glad you enjoyed them. Oh, lovely Della. She says, big fan, love the tea mug. I think you bought me this tea mug. So Della is technically my godmother's sister, but she's part of my family, and she got me this mug from Disney, I believe. It's lovely to have you on the stream, Della. And any possibilities of a gig in the States? I'm not aware of any gigs coming up in the States, although you'll be the first to know. But I do have a gig in the Caribbean coming up. Someone's got to do it, guys. What can I say? It's in Aruba. 9 days in Aruba. Someone's got to do it. Karen says, the lockdown live streams are so special. I agree. It was a lovely time. It was a lovely period. Jacqueline says, Roundabout is a great song. Sarah says Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, about 5 hours. None of us were standing. Andy says the December 1971 shows are a different venue to last year's Pizza Express, aren't they? Yes. So So the shows in December, I'm doing 2 nights at the Pizza Express in the Pheasantry, which is in Chelsea in London. So last year we did one night at the Pizza Express in Holborn. So the first night, which is I believe the 18th of December this year, the 18th is a solo show. So I'm performing my own original music, songs from my upcoming album, as well as songs from a Concrete Box, my debut solo album, and that's going to be with me and a pianist and a cellist. So guitar, piano, and cello. So the same as we did it last year. In Holborn. And then the day after, on the 19th of December, the Saturday, we're going to be doing a stripped back version of 1971 the show, playing songs from 1971, and kind of the more intimate stuff. And then obviously next April we're going on tour and doing the rock songs. So yes. Hope that answers the question, mate. I would love to see you there. Anybody on this stream who hasn't got tickets yet, there's I think less than 10 tickets left for Friday the 18th, and there's a few tickets left for December the 19th. Whilst we're on this subject, we were also doing shows in August 20th, at an amazing venue called Pancras Old Church, one of the oldest churches in London, and also Twinwood Festival, both with 1971 the show. I would love to see you guys there. So yeah, a little plug for that. Peyton says, I start at LIPA Uni in September. That is amazing, by the way. That was I was so nearly went to LIPA when I was 18. When I finished my A levels, I applied to LIPA and I got in, and I decided not to go because I was in a band at the time, and we just moved into a house together and kind of started doing gigs really. But LIPA is where I would have gone had I gone somewhere. So that's amazing. Good luck. Doing a session musicianship course. Do you have any advice, tips for sessioning? Yeah, I mean, being a session musician is strange because there's no clear path. There's no way to do it. You just have to do stuff, and then eventually you people get to know you, and you end up doing more and more stuff, And I'm very lucky in that I've always known exactly kind of what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be musically. So I know that if there's a rock thing in the UK, there's going to be, there's some great rock singers in the UK, but I'm probably going to be suggested if there's a rock gig or a rock session, or someone needs to record rock vocals for an advert. I'm one of, I don't know how many people, maybe 20 singers, maybe 10 singers in the UK that might get suggested for that kind of gig. So it's just about doing stuff and, going and singing at jam nights. I know it's sort of an old cliche, but one of the biggest things I ever did was a film called Götterdämmerung, and we were in the band that toured the movie live. That was back in, I think it was 2017, 18. And the first gig of that tour was at the Olympic Stadium in Munich, in Germany. And I got that gig because I sang Rock With You. Was it Rock With You or Beat It? It was either Rock With You or Beat It at a friend's birthday party, and they had a band, and I got up and sang that song. And someone in the audience, my friend who's a really good friend of mine now, Matt Hector, his wife was there. She saw me sing and she recommended me to him because they were looking for a rock singer. And that is how 99% of all the gigs I've ever got happen. It's you just happen to be in the right place, or you meet somebody at a jam night, or like when I was younger, I used to do stuff like wedding gigs, and I'm lucky I don't have to do those sort of things anymore really, but doing function gigs like that, it's not the gig itself and it's not the money itself that is the good thing about those gigs. The good thing is that all the people you meet along the way, and some of my closest friends I've met on stage, like my band Romances, we met at a jam night in Finsbury Park, and we were just on stage together, and we realised we all like the same music, and it was that simple really. So the brilliant news is, like, it's all in your hands, and the hard thing is it's all in your hands, you know. So you just have to go out there and do it and make yourself available. Say yes to things, get out of your comfort zone, and just play with as many people as you can. And you know, I guess in today's world, slight difference to the 15 years ago when I was coming through is that I guess a lot of it is about online now. I guess, I don't know. I mean, it definitely put stuff out online and show people what you're doing. So, Gabriel, hey mate. Hey Jesse, hope you're doing well. Love your new Classic Rock Show video. Thanks, mate. Yeah. So today we released our tribute to Ozzy Osbourne, which was just such an emotional one. You know, we were also gutted. It's actually a year ago today, isn't it, since we lost Ozzy, and to get to do that tribute every night. If you haven't seen it, it's on the Classic Rock Show YouTube page. You can go and check it out. But thanks, mate. Mark says you recently did 100 songs in 100 days, one of which was and then we haven't got the end of the question. I'm on tenterhooks here. Here we go. Sorry, Fat Fingers lol. Northern Sky by Nick Drake. Would you fancy covering more from his brief but superb catalogue? Yeah, I absolutely love Nick Drake, and that's another one from 1971 that I would love to do. And it's so tragic, isn't it, that he wasn't really known or didn't really get famous while he was still alive. So yeah, absolutely. I love singing that stuff. Labby is in the Madness music video for It Must Be Love. They wanted to include him, so he's an extra dressed in winter clothes. That is amazing. Hey, lovely Vicky. Vicky says, hey, Jesse, thank you for this YouTube live. It is my pleasure. Lovely to see you. My question is, what has been the most vocally challenging song you've had to sing? Ooh. The first one that springs to mind is only because I totally messed it up, and it's quite funny, but I had to sing... what's the Celine Dion song? Baby, 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 when you touch me like this. Is it all coming back to me now? Is it that one? I had to sing that on Strictly Come Dancing, and I made a total pig's ear of it. It was awful, and I just oversang it, and I tried to belt the high note, and my voice cracked, and it was really funny. So I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere if you want to go and listen to me embarrass myself. But that was really hard. But also, it's not in my comfort zone. You know, I'm not a pop singer. I'm a rock singer. So trying to sing a song like that was really, really a challenge. But there's so many tough songs out there. For me nowadays, it's about learning the song and then learning the technique and learning the placement. So ironically, this year, I had stuff like AC/DC Thunderstruck to sing, which is obviously really high, but it's quite comfortable for me where it sits in my voice. The song that I found most challenging this year was Turn It On Again by Genesis, which is Phil Collins singing. You know, so it's sometimes it's about where it sits in your voice, or, you know, maybe there's a thing rhythmically that's hard, or, you know what I mean? So I think that's those two of the things I've had to do in the last few years. Oh, Celine Dion, it just makes me shudder. But shows I'm human. It's Kevin. Hey. Hi, Jesse. Just popping in to say hello and that I absolutely love your performances. Thank you so much. I've already got my tickets for next year in the Netherlands. This will be my 4th year seeing the Classic Rock Show. Well, Kevin, I'm so sorry to have to tell you this, but I'm not going to be in the Netherlands this year. I'm the beauty and the best thing and the worst thing about being a freelance musician is that sometimes you have diary clashes, and I'm going to be singing with performing with Rick Wakeman in his band at the end of February, which means I'm absolutely devastated, but it means I'm going to be missing that show in the Netherlands. So I'm so sorry. I didn't want to, after having read your comment, I didn't want you to think I was going to be there. But the Classic Rock Show will still be there. I don't know who's covering for me, but I'm sure it will be someone amazing. And you'll have the best time. And I will see you next year 100%. And I'm so sorry I'm not going to be there. Pape Meritus says, hi Jesse, any song you'd love to perform with the Classic Rock Show but haven't done it yet? I touched on that earlier. I would love to do either Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You or Since I've Been Loving You by Led Zeppelin. They would be songs I would absolutely love to do. Craig says, are you doing Forever Autumn in War of the Worlds? No, so my character is the artilleryman, which was originally, the role was originally David Essex, and my song is Brave New World, which I absolutely love, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. Claire says, Aruba sounds terrible, thoughts and prayers. Yeah, they're not all like that. They're not all like that. And Kevin says, I love songs from Concrete Box. Hopefully I'll get a vinyl soon. Oh, thanks so much, mate. Well, you can order them on my website if you would like one. Fiona says, if you go back to the East Coast US, it'll be another excuse for a holiday for me. The show in New Jersey was so well received. Yeah, we absolutely love doing that tour in the US. Absolutely. Mike says, please, if you ever get time, record a multi-track version of The Warmth of the Sun by the Beach Boys. The harmonies are sublime. Yeah, maybe I'll take some time out and do some more of those YouTube videos. Helen says, is it difficult to make a living as an independent musician? What advice can you give upcoming young musicians? It's difficult for sure. However, I have to be honest, I've been super lucky with the career that I've managed to kind of forge for myself. What I'll say is, when you're younger and you're finding your way and you have to have time to grow as a musician. So for me, what that meant was, it meant going out and doing gigs with an acoustic guitar in the corner of a restaurant, and doing gigs in pubs and doing function gigs, because even though the gigs I didn't particularly enjoy, sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't, you're just learning your craft, right? And then as you get sort of more well known and you work with more people and you show that you're a professional and you turn up on time and you learn the material and you're a nice person to be around, then you start getting offered better opportunities. And for me, that was being in the West End when I was younger, and then going into slightly bigger bands and then touring, and then I started to get some really good tours. So I started to have 2 or 3 months worth of work in one go, or a whole summer's worth of festivals or whatever it might have been. And then what I've found personally is that as you get more well known, your gigs get closer and closer together, and I've managed to forge this career where I have a tour with this person, and then that finishes, and then I'm able to jump onto another tour, and then able to jump onto another tour, and I've just been so lucky with the projects that I've done and that I will do, and that and then you get other opportunities that come your way. But it's definitely not easy, and you can have the best gig in the world until you don't have it, and that's the bittersweet thing about being a musician, and it's tale as old as time. I'm good friends with a guy called Earl Slick who played for David Bowie, and imagine going from playing stadiums to David Bowie to then David deciding that he's going to change direction and get a different band, and we've all experienced that as musicians. You have a great gig, and then, the promoter might sell the company, or, and then suddenly the gig isn't quite the same, and then you stop getting bookings, and it just, and things change, and personalities change, and people's kind of, reason for doing it change as well. As people get older and have kids, that they might not want to tour as much or whatever it might be. So you have to be very thick-skinned. You have to be you have to do it not for money, not for fame. You have to do it because you love doing it. You have to do it because you have no other option but to do it. And it sounds cheesy, but it has to be part of you. And there's something indefinable about, for me, what rock and roll means. I mean, I'm a rock and roll guy, and that is like an ethos, and it means what music you listen to, the clothes you wear, the people you hang out with, the bars you go to. It's a lifestyle for me, and then I think that makes you genuine, and then I think it makes you more likely to get booked. So. That leads on a little bit into what you were asking about advice for up-and-coming young musicians. My advice would be, more than anything, is find what is the most authentically you. That's what's worked for me. You know, some people might want to be a jack of all trades and try and go from one thing to the next, and there's people that do that very successfully. But for me personally, I can only talk about my own experience. When I've had the most success is going, this is me, this is what I'm best at or one of the best at, and that's what I do, you know? So my advice is always to people coming through, find what you're best at, you know? Because there's only so many gigs and there's only so many things, and people want the real deal, you know? So if your thing is jazz, go to as many jazz shows as you can, listen to as much jazz as you can, be an encyclopedia on the genre, hang out with all those people, go to jazz clubs, you know, dress like a jazzer. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? And then eventually you'll find your people and you'll get booked. That's what I would say. And don't turn up late. And know the songs when you get to the rehearsal room. Dora says, which musician have you enjoyed playing with the most? Ooh, that's hard. Do you know what? There's so many. I couldn't possibly say. I mean, it is a real privilege getting to play with Rick Wakeman. I mean, wow. When he starts playing keyboards, he's just from another planet, and he's such a lovely man. But I get to stand next to him when he's doing a solo. You know, I've just finished singing my bit and there might be an instrumental break, and I literally have the privilege of going and standing next to his keyboards and watching his fingers from like a foot away. And wow, it is such a privilege to watch him do that. But I mean, I'm so lucky I get to play with so many amazing musicians. And sometimes it's about chemistry as well. You know, when I think about the band I was in from age 14 to my mid-20s, the band The Quotes, you know, those boys, we have this synergy because we played thousands of hours together. You know, we lived together, we wrote songs together, we grew up together. And sometimes you can't replace that as well, you know? But there's so many amazing musicians I've played with and get to play with regularly, so I'm very lucky in that way. Helen says, I was in Birmingham today celebrating Aussie Day. Oh, that's amazing. Great vibes. There was a 5-piece brass band playing Black Sabbath, and Aussie classics were so good. Rearranged classics can really work. Oh, that's lovely, Helen. Thank you for flying the Aussie torch. It's that's really amazing. Couple more questions, guys, and then I'm gonna call it a night. So get those questions in. I'll try and answer as many as I can before I go. Gabriel says, what would your advice be for songwriters to get opportunities as songwriters on other artists' songs? I don't know is the answer to that. I mean, that's not a world I'm that familiar with. I mean, I've always written my own songs and released them and put them out myself, and that's just the truth. I know people that do, you know, they're staff writers, so they work for like Universal or Warner and they write songs for a living. But I don't do that, just being totally honest. So I don't really know is the answer. I mean, I guess it would be finding the right people, right? It's like everything. It's like knowing the right person. So it would be writing a great song, and then submitting it to the right person at that label or at that, or, you know, again, going to things like songwriting courses or songwriting retreats and just meeting people. Because I think it's the same with most walks of life, but definitely in the music industry, it's about who you know, right? And the only way you get to know these people is by meeting people, and that just takes time. You know, you just have to do that gig or go to that show or you know, whatever it might be. So, yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for that. Couple more questions, guys. Get them in, and then I'll say goodnight to you all. Andy says, do you have a standout gig that you performed in your career? I touched on that earlier. One of my favourites for sure was the gig I did in Athens, Andy, with Led Zeppelin Symphonic. I talked about that earlier on in the stream, so you can go back and have a listen to that. All right, everybody. Unless we get any more questions in the next couple of seconds, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to try and do this more regularly. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for asking. If you're watching this retrospectively, you can always drop me a comment, and I'll try and respond to as many of them as I can. Those of you that are in the UK, like I said, I've got a gig on August 20th in London with 1971 The Show, also at Twinwood Festival. 2 shows coming up in December. I'm going to be out on tour with War of the Worlds in October. I'm going to be out in November with London Symphonic Rock Orchestra as well. It's an absolute pleasure talking to you all. Thank you so much. And I really look forward to seeing you at a gig somewhere soon. Good night, everybody. Peace.